Okay. Today we will talk about suggestions. Give us suggestions about something, Do you have a good idea? Don't you have a good idea? Why don't we buy some beers? Oh my god, it's very hot here. Why don't we get some beers? Let's get some beers. How about drinking some beers? Do you fancy drinking some beers? Shall we buy some beers? So we are talking about, or those are examples of suggestions. Very simple. There are different ways that we can express them. Follow me and take a look. Now, suggestions. There are different forms that we can express a suggestion idea, right? For example, the first case is why don't we or why don't you, right? Why don't we practice more? Oh my god, English is complicated, mathematics complicated, French complicated, right? Why don't we practice more? Why don't you practice more? Why don't you ask for help? Another form is that you can use the expression shall, right? With this one, shall, we can use only two pronouns in the question form. That is going to be I and we. I and we. So, it's very late, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm alone. Shall I take a taxi? I'm not sure. Shall I take a taxi? Shall we take a taxi together? Maybe it's better. We are talking about suggestions. Then I have the expression late, right? Or let's. You can listen to it, or you might have heard about this. Let's go, let's practice. You are talking about suggestions too. So you say, let's take a taxi. But in this case, with let's, it's not a question. It's an affirmative form, right? So why don't we take a taxi? Why don't we practice more? Shall I take a taxi? Shall we practice more? But let's is not a question, it's an affirmative form. Let's take a taxi. Let's practice, right? Follow me. Let's practice. Then I have two more, that is how about. How about. In this case, you can use a noun or you can use an ing verb. I'm hungry. How about pizza? I'm hungry. How about pizza? Or how about eating pizza? How about eating pizza? How about playing a song together? How about playing a song? With or without you? How about singing a song? How about playing a song? Right? Your suggestion, right? Also, you can express do you fancy plus ing verb. Do you fancy? Do you fancy playing a song together? Do you fancy playing a song together? Now don't forget, if we are using do you fancy, we need to use the verb with ing. Do you fancy playing? Or how about playing? How about drinking? Do you fancy drinking? Do you fancy playing? Do you fancy dancing? Right? But if we use why don't you, verb in simple form, shall I or shall we, verb in simple form, let's, verb in simple form. Any question? Any suggestion? Let's practice and see you later.